Today on the Star Trek Critic, Brothers. Data meets his father and the return of lore. As usual, points are taken away for each error, and due to continuity errors, this is a show that gets ripped apart right at the start. The first point is lost for the stardate. The Enterprise is going to be at McKinley Station for 6 weeks, which would make the stardate around 44130 at least. And due to the Borg threat, the Enterprise should hang around Earth, since there are no starships left, and the Federation always believes leave Earth unprotected except for that one ship that just got ripped apart. Another point lost since everyone just took shore leave, so the boys would not be left behind by their parents while they were on leave. And another point lost since Starfleet is not a babysitting service. It is not their job to watch these kids. 1 point lost. Who was watching them for 2 days on August 2? They should have some type of guardian watching them while on that strange planet, and that person should also be in here with Commander Riker. And why is Deanna pushing him? 1 point lost. Riker is a commander again when he was promoted to captain. In the real world, he would have gotten his command. While we're on the subject, Starfleet just lost 11,000. Picard would have been promoted to Admiral and given a just job, so minus 1 point. He has PTSD, and this was not addressed until first contact. All of them would have moved on. Data would have been promoted and made first officer or even captain, so minus 1 point. Dr. Crusher might have gotten a command. Wesley would have gone to Starfleet Academy. Worf and Geordi both would have also been promoted and possibly became first officers. And Deanna would have been the busiest of them all, so minus 1 point for Starfleet staffing the crew Hollywood style. And they're nowhere near this medical facility. Data says I, number 1. 1 point lost here, not because of the panel that's never seen again, but because the lights don't change when the turbolift stops and goes back to the bridge. He's like, how do we end up back here? Riker practices good English. He knows when to use who or whom. The captain of the Enterprise has no idea what's going on. That's not good. Data normally answers to something like this. Riker should have known something was up, so minus 1 point. Riker says go to warp 9.3? That doesn't sound right. And even though it says life support will end in 30 seconds, it's going to take hours before they run out of oxygen. Maybe days. Geordi says I, number 1. There must be some top secret reason nobody can use Turbolift 1. Minus 1 point for not going to the battle bridge. They could be under attack. Of course, the battle bridge is usually redecked to look like something else. That's why they couldn't go. The ensign says I, number 2. Only Data gets to use Turbolift 1. That's a plot device so nobody goes in there with him. So minus 1 point. This is the only time you see a blue alert on the Enterprise. On Voyager, it meant they were landing. Separating at warp 9.3 would destroy them all, so it's a good thing Data cut that off. Geordi says I, number 3. 1 point lost for opening credits 6 minutes into the show. When Data does this to Captain Picard, that's when Picard decides, let's just shoot Data. If you're ever captain of a starship, you should at least know the name of the kid who's in quarantine. This is a shot of a ladder and fancy flashing lights. This is a reminder that 300 years in the future, barber shops are going to look way different than they do today. Beverly is torturing that 9-year-old by making him drink a lot of water and have him quarantined away from a bathroom. And again, Deanna is steering Jake Potts. Willie and Deanna's reflection doesn't match, so minus 1 point. 1 point lost. Data already knows how to get there. 1 point lost because these numbers don't match these numbers. 1 point lost for too many force fields on the Enterprise, and you never see the scan phase again. Riker got from deck 36 to deck 2 way too fast, so minus 1 point, and minus 1 point for not shooting Data. Data searches the swamp for his creator, and it turns out it's this guy. Look close, there are a couple of android parts laying around. The whole plot of this episode, Data stole the Enterprise to go to the dentist. They were really reaching for stories this year. 1 point lost since they don't always make direct eye contact with each other. In reality, Brent Spiner did a great job though. 1 point lost here. If Data looks like Dr. Sung, they would have recognized that when he was found. Picard also wants to know, where the heck is the bathroom on here? This is a plot device, so we'll all worry about poor little Willie Potts, so minus 1 point. Dr. Crusher's bedside humor is like 500 years old. No wonder he gets dizzy. You can see the excitement in Worf's face as he realizes Data has another trick. In reality, Data turned the Enterprise into a giant escape room. The computer can find Data, so minus 1 point. Keep it up, keep it up. That's what she said. You never learn who old Tom Handy was, but I think he was eaten by a giant snowflake. Dr. Sung and Data have the same conversation as Sarek and Spock. Why did he join Starfleet instead of becoming a scientist? Obviously, Trek writers thought copying a plot was the logical thing to do with androids. Data asks, why did you create me? And Dr. Sung says, because I got it on with your android mother, that's why. Dr. Sung really wants to know what's going on with that left fielder.
Well, I feel his name. Why? Because I want to know! Because...
Data and Dr. Sung get cerebral about procreating. It looks like Dr. Sung stole a dinosaur head from a museum. Shout out to Brent Spiner hobbling around like a little old man. Now comes the problem child. Lore also comes to this planet for dental work. It turns out Dr. Sung is way too trusting of Lore. 1 point lost for continuity on Omicron Theta. Lore was disassembled and put in storage. Then Data was created, and it was quite some time between Lore being deactivated and the entity showing up, and you never really know the correct timeline. Ironically, the evil Lore gets upset when he learns that Dr. Sung says he's dying, even though a second ago he was surprised that he was still alive. As usual, when all of them in here, it means Wesley's flying the ship. And 1 point lost since Deanna has less than 5 lines in this episode. The producers must have thought it was a great idea to have a ship's counselor when the show began, but they really didn't have a part for her. 1 point lost for not putting Willie Potts into a stasis chamber. Just how dangerous are those parasites in a Cove Palm? They should have never gone to that planet. 1 point lost in not considering using the shuttlecraft. If the transporter is so messed up you have to program it to think all of you are Data, you probably shouldn't use it. And while we're on that subject, minus 1 point for not putting Willie Potts into a shuttlecraft and then trying to call for help from the shuttlecraft. Usually the shuttlecraft can also go at warp speed, but I guess not this time for this episode. As usual, Star Trek never follows the teachings of Yoda. Dr. Sung's answer doesn't help Lore at all. Is that a cuckoo clock? Now for some awesome sibling rivalry.
I am not less perfect than Lore.
Enough!
Have you ever wondered, why didn't Dr. Sung try to create more androids at his new location? Dr. Sung has created the Emotion Chip, and I believe this is the last time they play the Traveler's musical theme, but you can barely hear it over the voices. That's what she said. Again, Dr. Sung doesn't realize how dangerous Lore really is, which is why he decided to take a nap before he put that Emotion Chip in Data. Lore's like, wow, what a golden opportunity. The Enterprise computer is messed up. The chief engineer should not be going. It should have been either Dr. Crusher or Deanna Troi, or Wesley. Down on the surface, Dr. Sung quotes the Vulcan computer.
How do you feel?
According to an IMDb critic, Lore sings this song incorrectly. When I first watched this show, I thought, man, this is a really low blow, and I still think that. Lore's dirtbagginess has withstood the test of time. Now he quotes Kevin Malone.
Well, that's 6 wells.
And just a second ago, he was concerned about Dr. Sung dying. What an asshole. All these years later, ouch, it still hurts to look at. 1 point lost here. The tricorder should be able to pick up Data and Lore. There's another cuckoo clock. 1 point is lost because Dr. Sung didn't notice that Lore was unconscious. And it turns out now everybody on the Enterprise knows how to turn Data on and off. Data's like, what do you mean I stole the Enterprise while a little boy is being eaten alive by parasites? Things like that never happen on Star Trek. That's more of a plot for Lassie. Dr. Sung declines medical treatment. However, I think they should have done more than just let him lay there on the ground to die. They should have put him on the bed and given him a nice, comfortable send-off. Data says goodbye to his father, but doesn't tell him that he had a granddaughter for a short time. And of course, Dr. Sung doesn't say that his mother's running around somewhere. Data just leaves his father to die on the floor by himself and takes off. 2 days have passed on the Stardate calendar, but Picard says they've been at Starbase 416 for 3 days, so minus 1 point. Just how deadly is this parasite where he has to be in quarantine for 2 more weeks? Young Willie Potts is now the boy in the plastic bubble. But where's his bathroom? It's great that Data brought the toys back for the kids to play with, but they should really go back and check out what Dr. Sung left behind in his lab. They'll make a killing on eBay with this stuff. Beverly points out to Data that brothers forgive each other, and Data's like, do you mean I have to forgive that little shithead Lore? James Lashley has 70 screen credits, including Howard the Duck, The Golden Girls, and will be back on Deep Space Nine. Adam Ryan was the voice of Cody in The Rescuers Down Under, and Corey Danziger was on The Burbs. Brothers, where Brent Spiner does an excellent 3-way one-man show, gets a score of 67. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and let's see how many crossovers